everyone. Welcome to Team Talk. I'm your co-host, Mark Iorio, along with my co-host here. I'm careful not to say my friend, because every time I say friend, you say, don't get too excited about that, right?
Absolutely, but you're getting close.
I'm getting
You're
close.
Getting close.
Thanks,
maybe sometime in February, March, we can be friends.
Yeah, thanks. So Milt Corsi and I are here with our partner, Cini. What's up, brother?
Nothing much. I'm feeling okay. I guess you guys are feeling okay.
We're feeling fine, thankfully. Yeah, got through the illness season. Hopefully,
which were never the C word used to be something worse. I mean, now the C word is COVID.
COVID, right? Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
Haven't had it, but it's possible to get sick and not get COVID.
The C word we're going to talk about today is culture.
Culture.
Yeah, culture.
And I'm so glad you brought that subject up.
Yeah.
Because culture is a little bit like the weather. People are talking about it all the time, but nobody ever does anything about it.
Isn't that true?
And I think doing something about culture, actually taking steps to develop a culture that makes sense, is a great topic of conversation, and I'm really glad you invited me on to talk.
Yeah, absolutely, Al. Thanks. So with culture, a lot of people really don't know how to define culture. Isn't that right? I mean, a lot of the discussion, Milt and I talk about culture in this for Team Talk.
Right.
We talk about inclusivity and diversity in our business, how we build an inclusive and diverse organization. And a lot of that has to do with the culture of the company. But culture, a lot of people think culture is about perks. Culture is about, ping pong tables or foosball tables or pizza Fridays or paintball or whatever. That's not what culture is it?
Not at all what culture is. It's funny because I think you're right. Most people think that if you make your employees happy, they'll become productive.
Yeah.
But we found in our research, you guys know this, that actually it's productive people that become happy. So giving people a purpose is more important than giving people perks. And that really is it. The purpose of the company is really what engages people, not the perks that they experience in daycare centers and pizza Fridays and things like that. So you're right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How do you find purpose in an organization?
Such a great question. Thank you for asking that. Well, we actually discovered a few things, and you know this because we've been working together on this for years, but we discovered a few things along the way. One of them is there's this traditional sense that leadership has to do with an individual and their ability to get other people to follow them. Well, we've learned that, in fact, that's not what leadership is at all. Leadership is about articulating a purpose and inspiring people to fall in love with that purpose. And when that happens, you can step back. You don't need to be a leader anymore. Now the leadership has emerged from the purpose of the company. You don't need to be a personality. You need to love what you do so much that other people fall in love with it too.
Right.
So listen, I'm about the last guy in the world who'd ever want to use sports analogies, not knowing very much about it. But when you're talking about productive sports teams, they're productive around some concept like a ball or a puck that has rules associated with it. The ball or puck needs to go someplace. It has to be put there. That makes the whole process of culture for a sports team easy because there's a ball.
Right.
Business teams don't have a ball. They have words, and often those words are not very clear. Often those words are whatever somebody feels like saying. What we found is that when you articulate the purpose of a company and express it as a role model, which is what we do with the Brand and Cultural Alignment Toolkit, that role model becomes an alignment point for everybody in the company to fall in love with and become more like a role model, essentially. We call it a role target.
Right.
That drives behavior, and it drives language, and it drives imagery, and it finally unites two separate missions, HR and marketing, which really in most companies ought to be the same department, because whether your outside voice is having difficulties or your inside voice is having difficulties, the solution in both cases is the same thing.
Yeah.
Articulation of purpose.
Yeah.
You know that too, but I know in our working together, I'm kind of focusing more on the people side of things, the behavior side. You focus on the marketing side of things.
Right.
Isn't that right? I mean, don't you get a better result when you?
Absolutely. When your inside voice and your outside voice are aligned. And, I wanted to ask Milt a question because Milt played on some really successful sports teams in his career, right?
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I mean, Milt was a very successful football player and a good athlete. And I wanted to ask you, Milt, what were the signs that you knew that you were going into an organization or playing for a team that had a purpose that you bought into and that you felt comfortable with and that you won with?
That's a great question. It's very interesting because I was actually going to ask Al something very similar, kind of a chicken and egg kind of thing. Because what I found is that on teams that I've played on that were successful, oftentimes it was not so much driven by the athletic prowess of the members of the team. It was how those pieces fit together. In other words, if all of those people believed, to Al's point, if everybody believed in the purpose, believed in our cause, and that cause became bigger than you. It wasn't about whether or not I got the ball and scored a touchdown. It was not whether or not, the quarterback threw a touchdown pass or whoever did whatever. It's like we're all part of this machine who has a singular goal. It's to win the game, to win a championship, and we'll do whatever it takes
and that,
to make it happen.
I think that's such a good point, and I think that in athletics, obviously, in any business, there are stars. Some people who have stellar capabilities. That's just the way it is. They're often the people who get the headlines. Sometimes they're the reason why people buy tickets to watch. But what really wins the game are all the other players that you don't hear about so much, who are not as stellar. I mean, they're all good, but not as stellar as that player, who all of a sudden line up behind the whole idea of being a winning team and contribute 110 or 115 or 130% to that. And that really is what puts the team over the top. And I was a project manager for a long time, and that's where I learned a lot of what we're doing now. A project team that has 150 people on it will almost always rely on 5 or 10 people who really understand it and know it well. And that 130 or 140 other people who are also on the team will just sit back and watch those 10. The result of that is projects run late, projects disappoint people, projects cost too much money. If you can somehow, it's not about the stars, it's about the North Star, not the individual players, but the North Star of the team. If you can draw a picture of that North Star and get everybody behind it, instead of depending on 10 people on the team to put you over the top, you can now count on maybe 80 or 90 people to put you over the top. And the stars still get to be stellar, but the other players are the ones that are going to make the difference for you, and that's when all of a sudden you're spending less money and getting things done.
So in sports, as Milt was talking about sports, and you had mentioned earlier that in every sport there's either a ball or a puck or something, right? There's a purpose around that. In business, we don't see that.
We don't see that at all.
How does the BCAT process, Al, get to the point where you define the purpose of an organization?
If we just to complete that point that you made, Mark, because I think it's so important. If sometimes people get so lost in their businesses that they forget about the importance of working on their business.
Right.
We've seen this a million times.
Yep.
You get so lost in the day-to-day, the details, that you completely forget the reason why whatever it is your organization does, why it was founded in the first place.
Yep.
So what we do with the Brand and Culture Alignment Toolkit is bring people back to that. Why if God put us here, why did she do it?
Right.
That's basically the big question.
Right.
And we do that, and you know as well as I do that we went through an awful lot of testing with approaches on how to get this done.
Yep.
We finally settled on this thing that we call an incorporating question, which is a question that anybody can ask of the team that they run or that they're a part of. And we start with this question after we pulled a panel of people together from a team, often the whole team. We ask them all to describe their organization as though it were a single person doing its best work on its best day to keep all of its promises and achieve all of its goals. And we call it the incorporating question because instead of talking about ourselves, we're asking people to think about all of us. If our whole company could go to a party and become known to the other people at the party, what impressions would those other people get? And what we found is that when you get answers that are similar to each other back from that question, you've got an organization whose people are engaged, have a clear understanding, emotional understanding of their purpose, and are able to move forward. When in fact you get the opposite, where everybody is describing somebody different when they answer that question, then you've found that the ball is invisible. Nobody knows where the ball is and nobody can see it.
Right.
So we use that question to make the ball visible and show it to everybody, so that they can all participate in moving it in order to win the game that their team is on the field to do. And we wrapped a whole lot of science around that, as you know, that includes measuring those responses that come back to see how far apart they are from each other. I mean, we talked about this all the time. There are 3 questions. If you want to be a successful anything as a group, there are 3 questions you've got to answer. The first is, are we all rowing in the same direction, which we talk about all the time? The second is, okay, are we all rowing in the right direction?
Right.
And then after you've got those 2 things worked out, now you know where the oars are and what the direction, what the heading is of the boat that you're on, what the destination looks like.
Right, exactly.
Then you can go to the third question. Are we all rowing as best as we can to make sure that we get to where we need to go as quickly as possible?
Yep.
And so in a matter of hours, we can take people from a lack of clarity and a lack of understanding of what their purpose is to a really clear understanding of what their purpose is. With just a couple of exercises and some tools we've created. That's brand and culture alignment. And when that's all over, engagement numbers go up, quality errors go down, profit numbers go up. What we see and what we've seen over and over again is that companies become more successful when they do that.
I'm glad you said that, because it's this guy that started me on a pathway about 2 years ago. He was on Rainmakers Roundup, and we were talking about the tool. We were talking about the BCAT tool, the instrument itself, the survey, the incorporating question. Imagine your organization as though a single person doing its best work on its best day, getting all the results. Milt turns to me and said, nobody cares about the tool. They want to see the results.
They want to know what the
They want to
results
know
are.
what the results are, right?
Sure.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
he really got me thinking about us talking about the results of what it does. And so what did you say about that?
I think that helps us. I mean, one of the things that I think has made it more easy for us to make the case here.
Yeah.
Actually, there are 2 kind of outcomes. There's the obvious outcome, which we're really proud of, and that is that companies make more money and spend less of it.
Right.
And or if they're not for profits, and we've been doing quite a bit of that lately. If they're not for profits, they're more focused on their mission, and they're meeting the needs of the community they serve more effectively.
Right.
And their people are enjoying themselves more as they're doing it.
Yep.
Well, there's another outcome, and it's a kind of a strange outcome. A lot of CEOs wonder why their people don't love them more. Now, I realize that I'm kind of going out on a limb here, but a lot of CEOs kind of come in through a special entrance every day. They go straight to their offices. They sit in their offices all day. They only see the people they trust and know rather than all the other employees. And they have this kind of sinking suspicion that somehow their people don't like them or don't love them, which is really the bigger issue. And what we found is that the trick isn't to get people, the solution isn't to get people to love you, it's to get them to love what you love. And then they'll love you, because now they're working with you and not under you.
Right.
Now all of a sudden,
We're
you're
together.
teammates. You're
Right.
not, there's no stratification there.
Yeah.
And when you talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion, which is a very important subject, and I know it's a big part of what Team Talk is, when you ask that question, who are we when we're doing our best work on our best day? It doesn't matter what your rank is. It doesn't matter what your seniority is. It doesn't matter what your ethnicity or gender are.
Right.
Everybody has an equally valid, equally valuable voice
Love it.
in answering that question.
Yep.
Nobody's ever wrong. Every impression is a correct impression.
Right.
What we do is learn from each other equally what it is that our purpose, what is our purpose. And somebody who started yesterday and is 18 or 19 years old might have as good an answer or even better than the person who founded the company 30 years ago.
Yep. Great point. Love it. With that, we're going to have to take a quick commercial break. We will be right back with more from Al Cini and BCAT Partners. Stay tuned. Don't go away.
Plus this equals this, plus this, and this. Don't drink and drive.
Listen, what will make your event simply beautiful? Is it your attire, your decorations, your entertainment? Well, join me, Alicia Simone, as I chat with some amazing vendors and clientele who will share their stories and images and their experiences. Right here on RVN TV, Tuesday at 11:30 a.m. and Wednesday at 4 p.m. It will be simply beautiful. See you then.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys.
Welcome back to Team Talk. We're having a great time,
We
of
are, we're
course.
having a lot
We
of
always
fun.
are, right?
We always do.
I'm Mark Iorio. This is Milton Corsi, and this is our partner, Al Cini. What's up, brother?
Well, it's just great being here with you guys.
Good.
Thanks for inviting
Good to
me.
have you. Good to have you.
Absolutely, absolutely. Listen, Al, during our last segment, the first segment of the show, I think you did a fantastic job kind of explaining kind of what BCAT is, how it works, and all those kind of good things. But the question that I have for you, and I think maybe some of our audience members might have, is how difficult is it to implement? Is this something that takes a lot of time and effort, or
listen, one of the comments we get, and we get this consistently back, are how were you able to do this much in so little time? And the solution to getting a lot done in a little bit of time is to know what you're doing. I mean, that really is kind of the secret. There's clarity. If there's clarity in your approach and you understand where the approach comes from, and you do the same thing over and over again because it's consistent, then all of a sudden you can get a whole lot done in a very little bit of time. In the very beginning, the first step in the process is to take a survey answering that question we talked about before the break.
Right.
Who are we when we're doing our best work on our best day? It takes 15 minutes. And people work on it independently, individually. In fact, we recommend that. Okay. It's a good idea not to be working collaboratively on that. We want everybody's separate point of view on answering that question. We get those data points back. We meet with the executive leadership team. We show them how far apart all those answers were. We have a way of mapping that. And we talk about the factors that we map on. These are the four elements, or basically four elements of team performance that we identify that we measure those survey responses on. We plot all that out, sit down with the leadership team, and then say, okay, this is where your survey results got you. But thinking as the leaders of this organization and in that role, where do you believe the target ought to be? How close are these answers to what that is? How far away are they? Who do you feel is on track? Who do you feel is off track? And that meeting takes about an hour and a half, 2 hours, and it's done. After that, we have two data points, the average we got from the survey and the role target that the executive leadership team identified as the correct destination for the organization.
Right.
Okay.
All laid out on a map. There's a gap. Next step is to close the gap. That meeting, getting that target laid out, took an hour, maybe 2 hours, no time at all.
Okay.
Then after that, we work with the organization to come up with the norms of behavior, things that we can do every day that move us closer from where the survey found us to where we decided was the destination that our organization needs to be in. And all of those things are behavioral habits. It could be something as simple as it's important in this organization that you arrive on time every day. Right. Some organizations, that's important. It's important that we treat our customers in a certain way, meaning if it's a nursing unit, you have to express a great deal of compassion. If it's a business consulting unit, you have to express a great deal of direction. So the actual behaviors that come back are behaviors that are appropriate for the organization we're working with, and they're all aligned with that destination we say we're headed toward. We have a way of scoring those commitments so that we can give you a little needle at the end that tells you whether you're on plan or not. And the whole process really, front to back, can take a week or two. Okay. And that is not a solid week or two, but different meetings at different points over 1 or 2 weeks, and you've got that data point that you can follow. Yeah, so it's simple. Yeah. And it's a fun engagement because we never really actually need to know what you do for a living.
Right.
It's only important that you know what you do for a living.
Right. Yeah, that is a super. I love that process. I love the simplicity of it because at the beginning of the show, if you remember, Mark talked about I was an athlete in my youth many years ago.
That wasn't that hard.
Yeah. Sadly it is. but one of the things that when I think back to all the great teams that I played on, the thing that we all had in common was the things that you just talked about, right? Like we understood what the goal was. Yeah. Obviously, in sports it's a little simpler, right? Because it's like we play a game. We know whoever scores the most. I don't care if it's football, baseball, basketball, soccer, hockey. Doesn't matter. Whoever scores the most wins the game. Yeah. But the question is, how do you go about getting there? Right?
That's always the question.
What are the things that we need to, as a team, master? Right? And then we begin to put in a plan to work on those things so that we become more efficient and effective at doing those things on an ongoing basis. They become second nature. Yeah. So they just happen. those are the great teams. And it sounds like that's what that really is talking about.
You're raising such a great point because what we really believe BCAT is, in addition to being a solution, is it's a great coaching platform.
Yeah.
Because for a lot of people, coaching is about making somebody comfortable with who they are. But in sports, coaching is about making somebody better than they are, showing them what the next.
Right.
In business, sometimes we get confused. How can I make you happy with the fact that you're not succeeding? That's not what coaching is supposed to be about. How can I articulate for you what that end state is that you're working toward, and how can I help you get there? Well, with BCAT, you get numbers and metrics and a simple mapping system that help you coach people to achieve that level of performance.
So these behavioral changes that you're talking about, Al, this is, what are the 2 or 3 things I can do every day to get closer to that North Star? What other impact does it have? It has impact on people, obviously. What other impact does it have?
Well, you mean on the overall performance of the business?
Yeah.
Because we're equating customer experience and employee experience,
Yeah.
because we're saying it's the same experience.
Right.
The impact, and one of the most obvious immediate impacts it has, is that the customer experience for the business becomes much more meaningful relative to the purpose of the business.
Right.
We once, a while ago, did a fitness center, if you remember, a pretty big fitness center.
Yep.
And one of the things we learned is that everybody was working at making people comfortable there.
Right.
But when we sat down and analyzed all that data, we learned what they really needed to be working at was challenging people who were coming there.
Yeah.
This is not a community center with exercise equipment.
Right.
This is a fitness center. This is a health and wellness facility.
Exactly. Yeah.
And when you come here as a customer, the experience ought to be that you're on a plan and you're trying to make something happen for yourself. And the conversation ought to be about how are you becoming different visit after visit, not just how are you, how are the kids.
Right.
And by changing the way the people in the organization actually talk to their customers, we improved retention of customers, we improved recruitment of new members. All those metrics went up as a result of that.
So for 33 years, I've run my own firm, marketing firm. And every single time you go into an engagement with a client, the client is going to want something. They're going to want a new website. They're going to want a new social media campaign. They're going to want a new brochure. And a lot of the copy just comes from having conversations with people, right?
Yep.
There's no one thing informing the direction of the copy. You're talking about just having discussions with people.
Yeah, right.
What you're saying here now is that BCAT has a North Star for everyone, including all the marketing people, to say, this is the direction we ought to be going.
This is who we are.
And this is the language, and these are the visuals that you need to follow in order for you to develop.
This is the words, the language, the imagery, all that is driven by your purpose.
Right.
And we have a way of laying that all out so that your content marketing strategy is driven by the purpose of your company, which is really what you want to be.
Yeah.
And you want your website to reflect that too.
Right.
And in conversations we've had, I know one of your favorite teams is the New York Yankees.
Yeah.
There is this whole experience that you talk about all the time about being a Yankees fan. That is partly the game, but there's a whole other set of aspects of the Yankees and how they present that is just as important, maybe even more important. I mean, you can have a team that comes in second or third or fourth and still have people lining up to try to get season tickets.
Right.
If they buy into the purpose of the team and if that's clearly articulated, that tradition of the team becomes a selling point.
Well, it's not just wanting to buy tickets, wanting to go play for the team.
You might shave a couple $1 million off your contract just to be able to play for the Yankees because that's an opportunity that you perceive as having great value.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's the importance. That's the importance of what BCAT helps inform. It's not just the behavior of the individual employees within the organization, the purpose that they're striving for, but it's that marketing message that is now directed and focused and guided by this role target or this North Star that has now been developed by the process.
That's exactly it. And what we do when we lay out the purpose of a company by following our method, we end up with a really, really crisp, clear definition of the promise that organization makes to the world at large.
Yeah.
Right.
Purpose and promise are the same thing.
Yeah.
And we focus very heavily on that, and we get great results. We actually, the computer actually creates a template brand definition, a template
Brand positioning
brand
statement.
positioning statement,
Yeah.
which is a big contribution you made. Thanks,
Yeah.
Mark.
Yeah.
Because once we know what your purpose is, even though we don't know exactly what you do for a living, or even not at all what you do for a living,
Right.
we can lay out all those promises in a template form that you can use in your marketing material
Yeah.
to explain to people what you do.
Yep.
And we've had a lot of people say, who wrote this? Did the computer write this? Yeah. Well, how did it know this?
Yeah.
Well, you knew this.
Right.
You just weren't, it was subconscious.
It's exactly
all we
right.
did was take your unconscious knowledge and surf it. We took the ball and made it visible again. Now
Mm-hmm.
you can see it. Now you can run the games. Now you can run the plays.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
yeah.
it.
Why do you love doing what you do?
Well, there is this. First of all, there's enough science in it to make me interested, and I'm kind of a quant, and I like the numbers. And I really do think in order for a process to be repeatable, there has to be some scientific underpinning to it.
Yeah.
So I enjoy that. I like developing that. I also like. I don't know how much time we have, but when I was a kid, and I couldn't play sports at all. When I was a kid, a little kid, I grew up in South Philadelphia on a street with about 1 million other baby boomer kids my age. All lived in row homes. And I was the kid that was able to get 80 or 90 other kids to get together and form a baseball league or a football league.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they'd all just be playing in pairs or individually on each of their front steps. I was great at getting them all together to get them to want to play this game. I was no good at the game. I mean, when they finally chose up sides, I got picked last. But I didn't care because for me, winning that game was getting everybody out to play.
Right.
Listen, I've been to school and I got degrees and I did all that stuff, but I never let college stand in the way of my education. I learned a lot just from that experience, and I've been able to use that as a project manager, technical project manager. How do you get 150 kids to want to play? And that's more important than how do you force 150 people to do something for
Exactly,
you.
that they
It's
don't
much
want to
more
do.
effective
Right.
because you can't force people to do things. So that's everything about BCAT, and that's why I enjoy doing it so much. It's a great experience. for me.
Inspiring. Cool stuff.
Fun.
Yeah.
Great day.
Absolutely. This has been a fantastic conversation. I really wish we had a lot more time because I have a dozen more questions I could ask. But it's
I'll
been
come
great
back.
stuff.
I'll come back.
Okay.
We'll have
Just
you
thanks
back.
for
Yeah.
inviting me today.
Yeah,
It was
absolutely.
really
It's
great
great.
talking with you guys.
Why don't you tell everybody how to get in touch with BCAT Partners?
Our website is www.getbcat.com. We have a toll-free number, 855-999-BCAT. And if you want to reach me, I'm al.cini at getbcat.com. And you are mark.iorio at getbcat.com.
Got that right.
So we're happy to talk with anybody, anytime, answer any questions, and thanks for paying attention today.
Thanks for joining us.
Fantastic. Real pleasure.
Awesome stuff.
Thank you.
All right, ladies and gentlemen. Milt, thanks. Great job.
Always, bro.
Thank you. That's a wrap for Team Talk. We'll see you next time. Have a safe week, everyone.
Take care.